Now, back to Ed Flash Ferentz with America's Workforce.
And we're back. It's America's Workforce. And don't forget, you can check us out on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Twitter handle is at AWF Union Podcast. Let's go to line number 1. Welcome, one of our regulars. Always enjoy talking to this gentleman. His name is Pete Ielmini, and he's with the Heat and Frost Insulators. Going to give you 2 websites here. It's Mechanical Insulators, LMCT.com, and MechanicalInsulators.com. Actually, I'm going to give you 3. The national website is insulators.org. There's a lot of ways you can get to the insulators. Hey, Pete, welcome back to America's Workforce. And I know it's kind of late, but Happy New Year to you. How you doing?
Hey, how you doing? And Happy New Year to everybody else.
Well, it is a new year, and we have a new administration, and I'm sure you're keeping your eye on it because there's going to be some changes, big changes from the previous administration. Number 1, let's talk about the labor secretary. We have a labor secretary, although not confirmed yet, who comes from the building trades. I'm talking about Marty Walsh, currently the mayor of Boston, and I guess he served in the state legislature, and he's going to be in charge of the policies there. What do you know about him? How do you feel, Pete?
Well, I'm very excited to be able to have Marty in that position. Marty Walsh has been a pro-labor person for as long as I've heard his name. I've met him a few times. I've heard him speak. As far as the excitement goes on the building trades level, we're very excited that we have someone that's reasonable and is going to look upon unionized labor construction in a favorable manner. And with all of the infrastructure that's going to be moving forward in this country and energy plans that we have to move forward with, it's going to be good for unionized labor to have a friendly voice in Washington, especially at the table with the president.
Yeah, we all like that. Well, let's talk about the infrastructure. Let's talk about the future. And the mechanical insulators are all about energy efficiency. Now, the last time you and I talked, we got into the Climate Jobs Illinois. Maybe you can recap that. We get new listeners each and every day here on America's Workforce. You can maybe recap that a little bit and talk about what that would mean for all of America. Go ahead.
Sure. Climate Jobs Illinois, as we spoke about last month, is an initiative that the state is tackling, and it's really an aggressive means of attenuating climate jobs, global warming, clean energy, all of these buzzwords that we hear so much about. They're finally putting pen to the paper and making it work. And there are 10 points that Illinois is going to be addressing to be able to become what they call carbon neutral or net zero dependency upon fossil fuel by 2050. Now, that means by 2050, they want to be independent of the use of fossil fuel, which is definitely advantageous for the environment, lowering the carbon footprint. So be it is an aggressive goal to have, but you have to have goals to be able to progress and move things forward. So the next 30 years, we're going to be looking at helping them as mechanical insulators with energy efficiency. With the current fuels that we use now between natural gas and fossil fuels and oil, a lot of our systems and energy generation is still dependent upon that. But we can do a lot by increasing the efficiency of the use of those fuels by using mechanical insulation, as well as other technologies. But our expertise, if you will, is mechanical insulation, and we can play a large role in reducing, the carbon emissions and saving that fuel so it lasts longer. And even when the transition over the next 50 years is going to happen from fossil fuel to reusable energy, one thing we always have to keep in mind that energy efficiency is going to play even a bigger role with that. And this is what Illinois is tackling. And the first things they're going to be looking at is going to be all of their school buildings within that state, and trying to make the mechanical systems, that's the heating and the cooling of the building and their schools, making them more energy efficient. They're also going to be looking at arguably a term of clean energy used in nuclear powerhouses. But there's 6 nuclear power plants in the state of Illinois, and we're looking to make them more user-friendly and politically friendly, so they can still produce a tremendous amount of electricity and do it in a safe manner. And there's going to be a host of other initiatives that the state of Illinois is doing that is going to actually develop, and with legislation, develop what they call climate jobs. And it's big enough where it's going to have an impact around the country, where people are going to look at this, as well as politicians and people that develop policy and legislation, to see how well it works. And we're excited about that as well. It's going to be all with the participation of the unions. And that's going to be a lot of work. It's going to be generated for a lot of people. And one thing I like to be able to tell our listeners is, for the crafts that are going to be involved in climate jobs and energy jobs and energy efficiency, such as the mechanical insulation industry, now's the time to jump on board, because I see the future is brighter now than it's ever been.
I like that. Okay, let's talk about that. There's 2 components here. Obviously, you're reaching out to people that should get involved in this field. What about the ones that are currently in the field? Now, you mentioned a very aggressive program here. What does that mean for retraining the people that are already mechanical insulators? Because this, again, we're talking, 20, 30 years out? Perhaps no fossil fuel emissions. There's a lot of components, as you indicated, for this. What does that mean? What does that mean for the current workforce, Pete?
Well, as of right now, the current workforce, we're constantly training our personnel, our members, our workers, our contractors. We are changing and modifying our training programs to meet newer technology. As technology increases everything else in our world, so it does also increase our world. We have newer insulations that are smaller and lighter, cheaper, and that are more efficient than the older type of insulations that we are currently using. But one thing for our current workforce that is an advantage, our workforce has, and it's built in, it's integrated with our ongoing apprenticeship programs and mechanic upgrade classes and programs, is that we have built in programs and a paradigm to stay current with today's technologies. The insulation, for example, that is used in nuclear power plants is advanced more than any other type. And that type of technology has brought over into more standard building insulations as well. Mm-hmm. So our insulation material and our manufacturers of those products, they've cranked it up as well, because the end game, the end result is about efficiency. When we looked at power generation 50 years ago, we had these big old steam turbines that were fueled by coal and fueled by oil. And these turbines were massive. And if you wanted more power, you just put more fuel into it and just cranked out gobs and gobs of power, and the power was sent out, and everybody used it. Today, with more energy-efficient power generation, the power may not be as abundant as far as being excess, and there's going to be enough power going to be generated, but we have to make sure that what power is generated is used efficiently, and that's going to be used for a lot of things.
Yeah. Good point. All right, let's hold that thought. Pete Ielmini joining us on our live line. This is our segment we do each and every month with the heat and frost insulators. Mechanical insulators, LMCT.com is the website. We'll talk more about this, and we'll talk about the apprenticeship program. As Pete indicated, there's a lot of opportunities for jobs, good family-sustaining jobs, well into the future. Later in the show, Mike Dolan is going to be joining us. You may recall Biden's call for buying American products. Well, it's reverberating all over the world, and Mike's going to chime in on that as well. Back in a few minutes.
You're listening to America's Workforce with Ed Flash Ferens. Now, back to America's Workforce. Here's Ed Flash Ferens.
And welcome back to the show. And don't forget, we're available on various platforms, and that includes Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and most recently, Pandora. You can check us out on all those platforms. By the way, this next segment brought to you in part by the fine folks at the Ohio Federation of Teachers, OFT-AFT.org. Let's go back to our live line. Rejoin Pete Ielmini on behalf of the Heat and Frost Insulators. Mechanical Insulators, LMCT.com. We're talking about jobs in that field. Pete, in the first segment, we were talking about energy efficiency, and Biden just said that they're going to get back into the Paris Climate Agreement, which was a political hot potato. Still is, pretty much so. But talk about fossil fuels here, and I guess there's some of the opinion that there may come a day, and may be long off, where we won't have any fossil fuel emissions. We hear these terms like net zero, carbon zero. I can only imagine that's a long way off, but we're better off by achieving or using that as a goal. Can you explain that to our listeners, Pete?
Sure. It's sort of a moving target, and everybody's trying to be able to figure it out. But the important thing to realize, though, it's on the table for discussion. A lot of different entities have a target date on when they feel that we're going to be totally independent of fossil fuel. Some have it in 2020, 2030, 2040, 2050, 2060. And I think history and the rate of technology is going to dictate that. And, of course, economics is the ultimate driver in everything. You're going to have all this technology, but is it going to be something that's going to be feasible to be afforded by? One thing I realized with our craft, as well as other things, you're not going to stop technology. Technology is going to progress one way or another. And we have to work toward ways of having alternate fuels other than fossil fuels. There's going to be a point where it is going to be not existent or so valuable that it's going to cause world problems, as it has in the past. I'm old enough to remember the 1970s, the energy crisis, as it was called then, is that OPEC controlled our fuel in this country and basically held us for ransom. And fuel prices skyrocketed. The odd part about it hit the consumer at the gas pump, where you didn't mind paying a lot of money for gas if you can get it. And it was just a dependency upon one source of fuel. Well, technology and economics have taught us we have to have alternative types of fuel, and we are going to have that. We're going to have solar. We're going to have wind generation type of electrical generation. There's hydro. There's so many different types out there. And how fast is that technology going to take hold? Again, a lot of smart people have prediction dates, but, time will tell. I can remember as a kid growing up in the 70s, by this time in history, we were supposed to be flying around in jetpacks and have spaceships in our driveways. Like the jet. We're not there yet. Other other forms of it that technology are. I mean, the way we use cell phones nowadays, or that comes out of Star Trek, the way we communicate. So technology, when it rolls out, it's going to roll out, and we like to think we're in control of it, but we're not. It is going to roll out technology and other forms of energy producing forms are going to be there. But there is going to be a common thread no matter what type of energy fuel is going to be used in the future. The efficiency and how well we use it is going to play a big role. And that's where I feel our industry, mechanical insulation, is right in line with it is part of energy efficiency, and it's going to play a big role in moving forward, regardless of what technology is going to be used.
Oh, you're right in the middle of it. Well, let's speak to that because, we have a national audience now, and there's a lot of people in this country because primarily of the pandemic, they're out of work. And they don't see a bright future. Now, they have an opportunity. And you mentioned, for instance, Climate Jobs Illinois. Lots of jobs, tens of thousands of jobs could be created, will be created once we get these programs going. So if you can spell out for our listeners what the program is all about, what you need to qualify, and maybe get into some of the benefits and what may materialize as a result of getting into a field as a mechanical insulator. Go ahead.
Great, thank you. Apprenticeship. Those are the three words you need to be able to be successful, I believe, without a doubt. The apprenticeship program is a way of learning our craft. It's a way of learning any construction craft. Real quickly, an apprenticeship program is a balance between field experience and classroom learning. Some people will attain that to what they call an internship, or even that's what a doctor does. A doctor does an intern or a resident. They have a doctor will have a college instructional learning, classroom learning, but yet then they work with existing doctors for several years and learn how to be a physician within the field. It's a very well-respected occupation, of course, being a doctor, and something that's very serious. But as an apprenticeship program we use in construction works the same way. Our program teaches the science and the technology within the classroom, and insulation is very technical, believe it or not. You go to the store, you can see insulation in abundance, but technically it is advanced, and especially when you get into high temperature, low temperature, and you want that insulation not to work well. You want it to work at the optimal efficiency. You want that to be 100%. Well, that takes a lot of training. And to get into the apprenticeship program requires very little as far as prerequisite. And depending upon where you are in the country, some apprenticeship programs require a driver's license. Some do not. Some require a high school diploma or a GED. Some do not. The apprenticeship program is different throughout the entire country. The best way to get information about that, where your local apprenticeship program is just go online, go to the websites that you mentioned before. I'm sure we'll mention it before we get off this call today. Find out where those local apprenticeship programs are. There's a tremendous amount of information on the websites that'll give anyone that information. But when you're involved in the apprenticeship program, and if you're fortunate enough to be accepted, you'll be given this training, and I'm going to say training relatively is free, is that you'll be getting the classroom training all at the same time that you're going out to work and you're earning a living, and you're receiving a paycheck, and you're receiving benefits, and you're receiving benefits meaning health care And something that's real important in this country is health care. And we're proud of the wages and the benefits that we're able to offer, because it takes a lot of money to live in the middle class in this country, regardless of what part of the country we're talking about. And the wages are set in line with the building trades, and they're within that area of that way of making a living in your particular area. And it's a good, solid way to make a good wage and be able to raise a family and have the benefits. But it's a 4 to 5 year program, and you get your pay increases throughout that program, and you're learning the craft at the same time you're getting paid for that. So when you complete your apprenticeship program, you're your top scale of the insulator craft in your area, and you're able to make a nice living for the rest of your life.
That's what it's all about.
Yes, it is. It is about that. Be able to make a paycheck and have the benefits to be able to live in the middle class. And you're going to hear a lot about jobs and how certain programs and certain incentives and laws and initiatives are going to generate and give people jobs. And every time I hear that, the back of my hair stands up on end, because in the union world and our apprenticeship world, we don't offer people jobs. We offer people a career. We're not going to train people just for one particular project. We're not going to train people to be able to build that school system, or to be able to build that powerhouse, or be able to build that building, or build that hospital. We in the construction field, we work on several different jobs a year. And at the end of our career, we've worked on hundreds and thousands of jobs. So we're not involved in generating jobs. We're in the business of generating careers. And that's one thing that I hope everyone that's listening to me, when they listen to the news and they listen to programs and they hear about jobs, remember our apprenticeship programs, we train people for a career, not just a job.
Good point. All right, let's drive everybody to the website, mechanicalinsulators.com, mechanicalinsulators.com. If you want to get involved in this career, and you think about the takeaway here, earn while you learn, health care, among other benefits, and no student loans. It doesn't get much better than that. All right, Pete, we're going to leave it on that note. Pete Ielmini on behalf of the Heat and Frost Insulators, and that website is mechanicalinsulators, LMCT.com. You take care, stay safe, and I'm sure we'll have plenty more to talk about next month, all right?
Thank you, Flash. You be safe as well.